Hey guys, it's Dorr and Coch, and today's video we're going to be talking about the Army. Our Army, the United States Army, the USA. And, being Navy guys, but in special operations, we got, quite a bit of experience with those guys.
We could call them our sister force, right?
Yes.
Is that how that works?
Little sister. Yeah. Little sister. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe big sister. Who knows? But there's definitely a lot more of them.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there's
a green world.
I think there's more Green Berets than there are Rangers and SEALs combined. At least, I'm talking about the scrolled ones that are in the regiment. Anyway, I grew up in Tacoma, and 2nd Bat was right there in Fort Lewis. I actually spent most of the 90s on down there very close to the base, so they were all over the place. A lot of veteran neighbors, a lot of active duty guys. And in those days, they were running that, Marine Corps Plus haircut.
Those days, what are we talking?
90s.
90s, early 90s?
Yeah, 90 to 97. I lived right by the base.
Okay.
Back in those days, they were running that Marine Corps Plus jar head, so you'd always tell who they were. And they were always jacked. It was pretty cool. They talked to you, they'd hang out with you. Some of them lived pretty close to me. And I remember as a little kid, I saw them out on their deck, and this was in the weekend, Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
And they were doing IVs. They didn't look so hot. They were laying there kind of in the sun.
A little hard weekend.
And somebody was, giving them IVs, and I don't know. I thought they were like drug addicts or something. I didn't know what was going on. They were mainlining whatever. And I went and I told my buddy's dad, and he just laughed, said not to worry about it. They'll be okay. Then I grew up, and since then I've also
You've been in that
had that weekend, those weekend days in the sun with an IV.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But got a little bit older, and in my teens, and cousins or neighbors, friends' older sisters and stuff, they dated Army guys. They'd bring them around. They were really cool, intense, but all in all, it was a lot of fun growing up around them.
Yeah, man, well, I grew up in Pismo Beach, and that's about as far from any kind of military, anything. I think Vandenberg Air Force Base is, an hour down the road. So we had nothing. I didn't run into any military, Army, or anything else until I was actually in the military. So, yeah, you had those early on experiences. I had experiences later on with them.
Yeah, they as I continued to get older and understood what nightlife was and what bars were. They definitely run that town in Tacoma. The Swiss isn't there anymore, but that was one of their big main hangouts, and They ruled with an iron fist, apparently. There was any ruffians or any BS in their establishments, and there would be brawls and all kinds of stuff. I knew a few cops that had been Rangers, so hopefully that worked out in their favor. But it can get crazy out there, and if you find yourself in a altercation, especially one involving a firearm or anything of the like, you get. If the authorities are called, you're probably going to be detained, and there's going to be a secondary fight coming for you, a secondary process. And here at the channel, we've partnered up with CCW Safe. They are experts in that realm. They will handpick your legal team and send out independent investigators to work on your behalf. So check them out in the description below, because it's a process, and it's an unpleasant one that until you go through it, you really don't know anything about it. So, probably a good idea. But anyway, I was growing up in Tacoma. I know a few guys that did go into the regiment from high school, and one of them had a static line that doesn't decide to do its job during one of those really fast, low, no reserve runs that they do. And he landed on his buddy, which is the only reason he lived. And he was in the hospital for months. Isn't that crazy?
How's his buddy?
His buddy died.
Oh, shit.
He was the only survivor. There were 3 of them before they stopped it. It happened right there at Lewis. So he was from Tacoma, and he was a 2nd Bat guy. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah. He was actually a year or 2 younger than me in high school, but we knew each other.
End his career? Or?
Yeah, I think he was medically retired. Yeah.
Okay.
But so that was unfortunate, but that was another one. Everybody has training snafus. It happens when you're doing that kind of crazy stuff. But so your first interaction with the Army would have been joining it temporarily, we did in those days?
I was in the Army for 3 weeks. 3 glorious weeks. Yeah, the Army, they shove, they pack a whole 3 days of training into 3 weeks.
They really do.
And call it jump school.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's It's tedious. My hat's off. I usually call it, Navy appreciation, school.
Or at least team appreciation.
For sure. Oh, yeah, anything. But yeah, the funny thing was the guys that were going to a Ranger unit after airborne school, and you'd see them with their Army, they're getting their Army Class A's, I think is what they call them. Their dress uniform, shaving their berets. I'm like, what the hell? And you see the uniform, and it looks like it's got, I don't know, they look like a freaking Mexican general because they've got all the awards that the unit that they're going to has won. So it's like, it was nuts.
Yeah. In the class, those guys are, for the most part, going through jump school, are right out of boot camp, right out of infantry training. They're young guys just like us, but there were a ton of Rangers around. And apparently the class before ours had gotten into some fisticuff interactions with Rangers out in town. In fact, in the very bar that I was in when I was being told this, and I don't want to dime anybody out, Jeffrey, but apparently they'd had more than one altercation. So they were kind of like ready for us, so to speak. But my class was really laid back, and I grew up around Rangers, so I just started telling Tacoma stories, and they kind of made me a member of the tribe. At least if they needed a ride, they knew the Navy guys are good for that.
You were the liaison with them?
Yeah, the guy that owned the bar in Benning was actually a Ranger and had been in the Black Hawk Down Mogadishu incident. And he wasn't there that night. Or maybe he was. It was one of those nights, and I did go there a few times. But yeah, man, they are ready to go, and they enforce their turf by whatever means necessary. And I like that. I don't think we had any issues with them. The Rangers, of course, there's going to be issues. I mean,
normally you're cool with them, they're cool with you. Don't keep it lighthearted.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
But yeah,
the only other issues we had with them, because we kind of stuck to ourselves. I mean, we were the odd man out in jump school. So the next time I ran into them when I was in Afghanistan, actually, we don't own anything. We don't maintain any bases. So, we were at I don't remember the name of the place, but it was somewhere in Afghanistan. It was a little safe house compound that the Rangers owned. And I remember one day before they went on a patrol, this one young Ranger he was up in the turret gun on the 240, and he got it all loaded up and ready to go. And for reasons only known to him, he decided to take off the pistol grip and check it. Now, when you do that, the gun starts shooting and you can't stop it.
Run away!
So the one good thing that he did is he just kind of hunkered down and held onto it, and it just started chewing a hole in the ground in front of the Humvee until somebody, I think, one of the sergeants jumped up there and broke the belt off and stopped the machine gun. Nobody got injured. And I think a couple weeks later, I saw him back at Bagram in the chow hall, like serving chow. The only weapon they could trust him with after that was that large serving spoon. But yeah, and I don't know whether he was a Tab Ranger, but he was attached to him. So yeah, I'll count him.
Yeah, he's one, it happened. Overseas, one thing I noticed is they roll really deep. Like there's a lot of them, and they go out in like big numbers. And so their ability to command and control all those guys is pretty impressive. We were always, doing more with less guys. And I think that progressed a little bit more as the GWAT era went, but, we tried to keep our numbers lower. And man, their ability to show up with in force, we're talking like anywhere from 40 plus. I mean, a company's got to be over 100 dudes.
They always show up with a ton.
Yeah, and their ability to freaking move all of that firepower, and they had a lot of the same gear as us, a lot of the same equipment, and they were just able to, a company of Rangers like the size of a SEAL team. And the only thing a SEAL team does together is go to award ceremonies and, I don't know, freaking...
Change of command.
Yeah, change of command ceremonies. Like that's the only time you'll see a whole team together. But
see all of them.
But being fully kitted up and being able to do stuff in those numbers, it's pretty overwhelming. And speaking of rolling deep,
you mean the horde of locusts?
Yeah, like speaking of rolling deep, like if you were gonna work together, and I saw this, not only overseas but at their compounds, if they come to our area, like we'd have everything out in the open. batteries, flashlights, chem lights, things that you'd need. You're heading you're heading into the team room, you're heading to the staging area, and you're just grabbing little knickknacks, those gels, the triathlete gels.
Yeah, we didn't have any of that. We had the little Debbies.
Yeah,
same thing.
But that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And dude, it would all be gone, just whoosh, gone. Hollow point ammo, whoosh, gone. Freaking like that kind of stuff.
Well, you left it out.
Yeah, we did, to their credit, and I probably would have done the same thing. Who knows? But yeah, that was funny. Because you got to go to the whatever department, technical support department that replenishes that stuff, and be like, "Hurry!" But that was pretty funny. There were no signs that said not to take it, and it's all taxpayer, funded stuff. So in a way, they're kind of as entitled to it as we are. But I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, oh,
They sure thought they were entitled to it.
what are you talking about? This isn't for everybody. But
Got a cargo pocket. It's empty. Now it's full.
Funny.
We're all
We
good.
can get more. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, when we were in Iraq, we had attached to us as our QRF was 99 Rangers.
Yep.
And those guys are awesome. They're more user friendly for us than the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps likes to work with the Marine Corps, so you ask them for just some support, and they'll we'll just take that whole sector. Like, okay, but man, you go to a Ranger and you go to their Sergeant Major and say, hey, we need 3 machine gun teams as blocking force, and be like, hey, Smitty, Jones, Boudreaux, get with the chief here, and you brief them, and man, you put them in there, and they will do whatever you tell them. With some caveats.
Yeah.
See, now you put Rangers in a blocking force, and you say, any vehicle that comes down this road, light him up. Dude, it's gonna happen. They're gonna just fill it full of holes. Dude, if you say, all right, any white cars come down here, don't light them up. Every other color's good. Yeah, that's too much. They will light up every freaking car. They'll claim, that it wasn't white, it was beige, or I don't know, whatever. They want to get after it. Yeah. So you got to know who you're working with.
Light up, that entire 200-round belt is going all at once because he doesn't want to carry it back.
Walking back.
Nor should he. I wouldn't either. Another thing was like how young they are.
Oh yeah.
For
the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I was last year's high school senior going through buds and everything, but had been in the Navy about 3 years at this point when I deployed, and I was the only new guy in my platoon, and a SEAL platoon was 16 guys. And we got some more in the troop before we left, but like the level of experience was extremely high. But then you go with them, half of them could be E2s and 3s or something, So their ability to command and control, being a younger guy, far exceeded us because, they only had to yell at me, kick me around versus, they had entire squads of just like really young guys.
We had enough older guys that took that responsibility, so you didn't have to step up as soon. I guess their culture is they get you when you're younger and like, hey, start grooming you for, positions of authority. Which
It's just a bigger organization.
was good. And we had of the 99 Rangers in the hangar there with us at the Baghdad International Airport. 2 of them were named Tillman, and Pat and his brother used to come over and actually used to hang out with us because we were a little older, they were a little older, like you were saying. And Pat was like, you come over, have some coffee, and be like, yeah, dude, you can only talk about doing girls in the butt for a certain amount of time, and then you need some adult conversation. So, hey, come over and hang out. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, he was a good guy. From what I knew of him, there was. I'm not a football guy. Didn't know him, but there was guys on the squadron that were that knew of him before that. And we asked him at one point, well, why didn't you become a SEAL? And he says, well, we thought we had to be an Olympic swimmer or something. I'm like, dude, no. He's got to be able to deal with discomfort. But anyway, the Rangers work with us. The QRF, it was always good, warm, fuzzy feeling knowing you had either a ground assault force ready to come get you or helicopters loaded with young, motivated individuals to come pull you out if you needed it.
Yeah, definitely a warm and fuzzy feeling. knowing that they were coming. We went up to Fort Lewis. That's where are the TF 160 guys that we usually work with on the West Coast are up there. They've got the second bat up there. This is a number of years ago when things in PACOM were starting to heat up a little bit more, and it looked kind of like maybe a rapid response in force out into that region was gonna happen. So they have their own drop zone right out in front of their compound, their own airstrip right there, and they were doing those combat no reserve, like super fast deployment. And it's funny though, because they know that's their bread and butter. They know that's their job, kind of like us getting in the water is ours. And you could just see it on their faces. Like they were going through the motions, they were doing it, but they didn't want to be doing it. You could tell. It was like, oh God, because static line sucks. It just does. There's no way around it. And this is before the new and improved steerable static line chutes. They were still jumping the, I believe, the round canopies. And there's just no way around it. It's terrible. It's like jumping off of a second story out of a deck or something. You're just going to hit, and that's where it's at. And that's if you do it correctly.
I got a broken leg and a separated shoulder from a couple of different combat equipment jumps.
But
yeah, it was pretty funny to kind of interact with those guys and see how they wore their kit and set their weapon systems up, because they were very similar to ours. And it was just funny, because what you're signing up for, what to expect, what the training is going to be, and you do it, but it was just funny because, our get out there in the water at night and get through the surf zone, it's our job and we do it, but theirs was, fast, lots of static line jumps. And I thought that was pretty funny. In that way, they were exactly like us.
That was their big suck that they had to embrace.
Yeah, guys, just a quick story of just, our NSW side, working with the Army. The Green Berets, the SF, we definitely would work around them, not so much with them as much. There's a big difference between ODAs and what the CIF CRIF guys were capable of. So the CIF CRIF guys would kind of handle business and do their own thing. They're more direct action oriented like we were. But sometimes there would be areas of Iraq where the only SOF unit was an ODA. And those guys are quite capable, but that's not their mission, and they don't exactly have all of the equipment and everything they need to handle the heavy lifting on the direct action side. So we would come into their area of operation, they'd brief us on the situation, and then we would go and run DAs in those areas. And they were very helpful, and they'd come out with us in some capacity, especially on the intel side. All in all good. It was funny, fun stuff. They were just like us, the humor, the capability, the gear. We had one group, it was way out west, like in Al-Qaim, and they all had like the crinks and the shorty AKs, and it was like, well, we're here to, do training with the locals, and they're all running AKs, so they all had like tricked out crinks. Oh, that was pretty cool. It's the first time I ever got to shoot one. But, the humor, the same, anytime you'd have a onesie, twosie jump in with the other unit, I think it was pretty seamless and easy because, the job's the job, and it's very area of operation centric, depending on where you are, what the mission is. But, always a lot of fun. I spent way more time with the Marines than I did the Army, but that's another story for another day, and it's going to be a much longer video. And another thing, playing off of how there's two different types of Green Berets, you have the ODA guys that are trainers, and then they're more CIF, CRIF, DA capable. The Rangers do the same thing.
So to a whole other degree.
There's not every Ranger apparently is a Ranger. So they've got Ranger School, which is a leadership school, no easy task. It's definitely a hard thing to get through, but
Pretty much anybody can go to it, and then when they're done with it, they get their cool tab, but they can go back and be a clerk typist again and, never actually use it.
yeah, it was a punishment in the SEAL teams. Like, this is your last chance. Like,
Officers.
you're going to go to Ranger School, you're going to pass Ranger School, or we're going to send your ass to the fleet. And so you'd see guys like older dudes. They didn't really do this in my generation, but before, like in the 90s, you'd see these like crusty chiefs, senior chiefs, and they would have Ranger tabs on their garrison camis. And you would know all those guys were the guys that got in trouble. So they'd send them as a punishment to Ranger School, but they would come back better dudes,
Yeah.
And we actually had a couple of guys who were actual Rangers that decided they didn't want to be Rangers anymore. They didn't want to be SEALs, and those guys had the tab, but they were,
Yeah, so they have the tab guys who go through this leadership school. And again, it's no easy task. But then you have the scrolled Rangers. And the scrolled Rangers are actually at the regiment, or at least spent a tour there. And those are the guys that you can expect to do the Ranger things. Because the other ones might not actually have that same DA capable, seize and take at a large scale. They might not have any idea how to do any of that. And that is something that I did not know even on my first deployments. I would just expect the guys with the tabs to be able to do Ranger things. And apparently they cannot. So, kind of
course,
false advertising, Army.
If there's a scrolled guy around, they won't say it. But if there's not, oh yeah. If you just got a tab, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Ranger. Yeah. I'm a Ranger.
So apparently they have these like different levels of what is and what isn't. And on our side, you definitely do not.
Yeah, you got a Trident or you don't got a Trident.
Yeah. So we do have enablers. We do have enablers, particularly EOD and SWIC that are quite capable, but it's apparently obvious who is who in the zoo. That makes sense. But yeah, in the Army, man, there's a lot of
segregation, shall we say?
Yeah. But just something I noticed. Kind of confusing, but we got it figured out. But anyway, bud, got anything else?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, guys, thanks for being here. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Check out that back catalog. We're nearing 1,000 videos, and we'll see you next time. This is Dorr and Coach, out.